Good evening, everyone, or good morning, or good afternoon, or good whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. I'll tell you what time it is here. It's beer o'clock. Cheers, everyone. How the devil you're all doing? And here we go. It's Friday once again, and the sun is shining. It's been on and off all day today. We've had a bit of mist coming in from the sea, but it is nice and sunny out there today. It's good drinking weather, whatever you want to call it. Yes, as usual, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to talk about for the next hour, apart from one thing, which I'll mention now, actually. Obviously we lost Tina this week, didn't we? Tina Turner. Just one of those artists that it was a little bit like when, Lemmy passed away and Jeff Beck and, all of these people that we've lost recently. You tend to forget that they're flesh and blood and mortal, and you just think that these behemoths of the industry have always been there and always will be, and it's it's a little bit of an eye opener, a little bit sobering, isn't it? So rest in peace, Tina. Your music lives on, and I've spent the last couple of days going through some ideas on how to do some kind of Tina tribute. So that will be coming at some point. Usually, how I do these things. I like to let the dust settle a little bit first, and then we'll see what I can come up with. Maybe there's got to be a decent solo somewhere on some of her tracks. I might do actually the one I was thinking about. I might do another sax solo, because I've done a couple of those. I did Rat Trap, I did Will You, and I did the sax break on Born to Run. So I enjoy taking sax parts to pieces and putting them back together on guitar. So I have been thinking about tackling the sax break on what was it? Simply the Best. Oh, it's actually just called The Best, isn't it? Everybody mispronounces it and calls it Simply the Best. But you know the song I mean. Funnily enough, I used to play that in a band back in the early 90s, and used to play a solo there in place of the sax break, but it was just something I used to improvise. So be interesting to see if I can do that sax break justice. So yeah, that might be an idea. I'll keep you in the loop and let you know. So how's everybody doing? Let's have a little bit of a look and see who's in and who was first in and all the rest of it. I see we had Mark Kerno first in. And then we got Dave Fiendish, Balder, and Peter Nicholson, and who else we got? We got Anton. And scrolling down, I can see that we've got Rent to Kill, and Terry S is in, and who else? We've got Robster Boy, and I'll see I've got a couple of super chats there. I'll just kind of mention those. Phil B, you are a gentleman and a scholar, sir. And Robster Boy, thank you so much. Much appreciated, chaps. Thank you. Then, where's the chat gone? There it is. Then I see we've got Grandpa Joe and Phil B. Did I say you already? I just did, didn't I? And Johnny Random's in. And then who else we got? We've got Peter Collins, and scrolling. There was a bit of a kind of conflab going on between you chaps in the chat before I arrived. PFY Guitars is there, and so is Paul Trainer, BSc no less. And scrolling down again, who else have we got? We've got. I've lost my train of thought now. I've forgotten who I've said, so apologise if I mention you twice. Lawrence Hastings is in, and then scrolling. Edwin Toonan, how are you, mate? Back after 3 weeks, other things to do on a Friday. Can we open the beer? You can always open a beer, mate. There's never a wrong time to open a beer. Well, unless you're driving, I suppose. Then there's David James, and who else we got? We got Dave Lewis, And scrolling down, let's have a look, see who else is in. Sean House, Gordo Canuck, and there's Robster Boy again. Dr. Gomez 1, and who else we got? We've got Dave Lewis. I've said you already, haven't I, mate? Is David Evans in? Did I see him earlier? The chat keeps kind of jumping and moving as I'm scrolling. I do apologise. There's Triple Distilled, James Hunt and Wayne Smith are all in. And we got the Time Prophet there. There's David Evans. David Evans is saying, John, do the Tina and Bryan Adams tune, It's Only Love, off Reckless. Yeah, classic album, that, Reckless. I've got to say, it's, if you're looking for a best of Bryan Adams compilation, just buy Reckless, because literally all of his best work is on that album. The rest of his work isn't subpar. It's just, that's like, for me, I think some artists just have that one magnificent album in them, and that was his. There's Colin Falcon is in, and Gear View Mirror. And who else we got? Paul Trainer, sir, you are a gentleman and a scholar. And Budget Guitar Show. Let's just give a shout out to your new album by your band Skidlids. I plan on grabbing a copy of that over the weekend, so you'll get at least one sale, mate. I'm sure you get many more, but I will be. If you want, Johnny, Budget Guitar Show. If you want to put the link to where people can grab the album, feel free to chuck it in the chat, mate. There's Stuart Young and Stuart Young. Yeah, the best sax solos were played by Candy Dulfer. Although strangely, I could never remember what they sounded like. Yeah, what was that? That big hit that she had. Instrumental thing, a collaboration with somebody else. I always know it when I hear it, and it's one of those tunes that stops me in my tracks. But unlike you can never remember what they sound like, I can never remember what that one's called. And there's Johnny Love just landed in the chat, and Stephen Hedger. And there's Lily was here. That's the one. Thank you, mate. Yes, fantastic. Just a haunting melody. I think the reason I have such an affinity with saxophone is because I grew up in the 70s, and I think there was some kind of there was some law passed in the 70s that, like in the 80s, every song had to have a guitar solo. Pretty much in the 70s, every song had to have a big sax break. Edwin Toon and the Heineken's on you. Well, unfortunately, Edwin, I'm on the Holston pills this evening. But thank you anyway. You are a gentleman, sir. And yeah, it's that 70s thing. All the big hit records seem to have a big sax solo. Obviously you got Baker Street, and then there was Rat Trap, wasn't there? And it was a big thing in the 70s, sax solos. Now, I wanted to play sax. Comcross, thank you. That deserves a shout out. Anyone want to buy a 7-string microtonal guitar? Well, if you do, then you can ping your details to me and jrguitartuition@gmail.com, or you can use the contact form on my website. The link will be in the description underneath this video once it's archived under this live stream. And get in touch and call if you want to send me your email details. I think I might have them already, but feel free to send them over to me, and I can put you in touch with anybody that's interested in your rather fine guitar. Someone's saying the sax solo on Money Back from Pink Floyd. That was Dick Parry, wasn't it? I seem to remember from my days of voraciously reading sleeve notes on LPs. Yeah, Dick Parry, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I originally wanted to play the sax, and and it was somehow or other I ended up getting diverted onto guitar, and never regretted it. But Johnny Love is saying. A little shout out to the Studio Rats YouTube channel. If you haven't come by yet, great channel, great live stream on a Wednesday evening. I vaguely kind of know the name there. I think I've seen a couple of the videos, but I shall have to go on sub and see what other stuff they've got out there. I do that all the time. I think, I must check out such and such, and then get busy with other things. Because you wouldn't believe the work I've got on at the moment. I'm not complaining. It's just there's a new venture that I've got coming to fruition that I can't really say anything about because it's a collaboration with another company, and it's their prerogative to make the big announcement. But when it's out there, I can talk about it. But I'm putting a lot of time and effort into that, and lessons, YouTube videos, and tabbing out solos. I've got 3 of those to get done tomorrow, as well as me lessons. So it's all go being a guitar teacher, and I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way, because frankly, what else am I going to do? Stack shelves? I don't think so. Com, you never know, mate. You're saying you don't anticipate much demand. Yeah, but chuck enough darts, one of them's going to hit the bullseye, mate. So just get the word out. Let's have a look. See what else we got. Not the most fortunate name, Dick Parry. Yeah, it does have certain connotations, doesn't it? The one that always used to get me was years ago. Gosh, back in the 90s, there was an Irish politician called Dick Spring, who presumably, on his birth certificate, it said Richard Spring. And, he thought, well, I'm going to kind of shorten it to Dick Spring, indeed. And the classic one that I'll always remember, back in the days when I used to have a proper job, working for a large electronics company as a lab technician, part of my job was doing quality assurance, which meant meeting customers. And there was a customer, one of the buyers from a large electronics company who you will no doubt have heard of, but I'm not going to name. And his name was Andrew Anker. And he insisted that he didn't like being called Andy. So it was like, yes, this is Mr. Andrew Wanker, and it was I don't think he saw the funny side of it, but it was he was a funny fella. He was an oddball, as you can imagine. Well, you're going to be with a name like that, aren't you? Growing up with that kind of nom de plume. Chip Young, I worked with a Roger Hyman, a student of mine, actually, gentleman of a certain age. He was, middle-aged chap with a teenage daughter, and his daughter's boyfriend was called Robin Banks, and you just think, what is going on there? It's like, well, Mr. and Mrs. Banks, what are you going to call your new baby boy? Oh, we were thinking Robin. But the best one is the guy who played the original James Bond guitar riff, that kind of riff that, from all the James Bond theme tunes. As I'm sure many of you will know, he was called Vic Flick. And that was his actual name, Vic Flick. So, Mr. and Mrs. Flick, what's your baby son going to be called? And, we were thinking Vic. Mike Hunt, indeed. Good chat up line. My name's Dick. Do you like it? Oh, dear me. We're heading back to the 70s now, aren't we? It's becoming much like a Carry On film. Just name any Carry On characters. Indeed. What are you saying there, David? My brother Steve had a dabble on the flute and then the clarinet as a kid after some persuasion from my mum. Dad got him a drum kit for Christmas in '86. Self-taught and bloody good drummer now. Yeah, well... This is it. You tend to find that drummers usually tend to be self-taught. Having read interviews with musicians in various music publications over the years, you like some of the most iconic drummers, like I'm thinking of the Cozy Powells and the Bonhams and the Keith Moons of this world. They all seem to be, kind of self-taught from my recollections of reading interviews and stuff. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, it is one of those things where I suppose many guitarists are self-taught, aren't they? But see, self-taught in the old days meant literally you figured it out for yourself. Self-taught these days means you've watched loads of YouTube videos quite often, and as a purveyor of such material, I'm not hardly in a position to kind of cast aspersions on that. But it's all I'm saying is that back in the old days when I were a lad, we used to get up 2 hours before we went to bed, etc. The rest of that Monty Python sketch. But back in the old days, before there was such a wealth and breadth of information out there, it was being self-taught was meant you put a lot more effort in. I'm seeing there's a few more super chats in there, so I'm just going to address those. Budget Guitar Shows, cheers, JR. Well, you're very welcome, mate. If you haven't pop the link in the chat yet, mate, then do so at your leisure, basically. Steve Cassidy's saying YouTube excuse me, I'm breaking these teeth in for the dog. YouTube tutorials are mostly legit. Indeed they are. The thing is, it's very much a meritocracy, I think, YouTube. If you knock out good content, then you will kind of get popular. Your channel's growing, Steve, and so is Johnny's A Budget Guitar Show. And all you need, speaking from personal experience, is that one video that you can never predict what it's going to be about or what it's going to concern or anything. But I was putting YouTube stuff up for 10 years, and then from 2008 to 2018, and then one video just kind of took off, and here I am now. Got monetized, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I just take the view that if you chuck enough darts at the board, one of them's going to hit the bullseye. You'll kind of hit that video that will just kind of set things alight, that pleases the mysterious algorithm and gets you promoted in people's suggested videos, and there you go. And at the risk of sounding like some awful cheesy motivational speaker, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Oh, thank you, Con. Thank you. You're a gentleman, sir. What are you saying, Balder? You should work on the moves and get a push-up bra. Bingo, 2 million viewers, indeed. Well, they're already there, mate. They're already there. But they were kind of getting there. But as you know, I had that little visit from the cancer fairy kind of a year or so back. And part of that was some hormone treatment, which really did, kind of lend weight to matters, if you know what I mean. But that's all finished now, so they are kind of receding a little bit. Apologies if that was just too much information. Let's pour another beer while we consider what we've learned. Oh, Steve Cassidy, mate, I appreciate you saying that. No, I wasn't. The point I was making is that, if you crank out decent content on YouTube, sooner or later it gets noticed. And if you're cranking out misinformation and rubbish, then you soon get found out. Oh, by the way, Steve, good luck with your gig tonight. Oh, you shouldn't really say that, should you? Break a leg, just have a good gig, mate. Craig Watson is saying, what about Claude Nobbs from Montreux Jazz Festival in Smoke in the Water as Funky Claude? Yes, indeed. It's again, I guess maybe with a name like Claude Nobbs, you got to kind of think, well, he's probably French or Swiss or something. Called Montreux, obviously Swiss. But indeed, some names don't translate well. I remember a funny story. Well, I thought it was pretty funny anyway. I've got a mate who's probably watching this stream right now. In fact, I know he is, because as you can see behind me, the bed is folded down. He's staying with us for the weekend, and he was telling me this story about how Ford were going to launch the sporty version of the Ka, the KA, and it was going to be called the Ka SI, and it took some difficult explaining to Ford executives that you can't launch a car in the UK called the Ford Carsey, because that is a slang term for toilet over here for our international viewers. You would literally be buying a Ford toilet. So there you go. That tickled me anyway, but perhaps it loses something in translation. Let's have a look, seeing what we got. Oh, yeah, Boulder there. Let's give a plug for October the 6th. Will anybody be taller than Sir John? Dear me, I've been knighted when I wasn't looking. I'm only 6'1". Well, I'm 6'7", mate. But, it's all relative, isn't it? I have terrible trouble getting trousers to fit. I'll tell you that much. Ridiculously long inside leg when you're this kind of height. But yeah, October the 6th, everyone, if you're not aware, we're having a little get-together. It's a Friday evening, and we're all having a little bit of a gathering in Redcar. Details to be finalised, basically, but it'll be a case of meeting up in a pub and having several beers and then going on for a curry. And if you're interested, just get yourself up. There's no limit, as long as I know how many people are coming, so I can book the table at the curry house. And it'll be a rather good evening. I'll be sticking a chunk of money behind the bar, as just my little way of saying thank you to everyone for turning up. Other YouTubers organise, kind of like trips to, what was it, the Seychelles or whatever it was, that thing that Henning did, to make videos about guitars. I'm organising a trip to Redcar to drink beer and eat curry. That sort of says maybe a little bit about me, really, doesn't it? Johnny Random saying your lad is 6'2" and still growing. Yeah, he sounds like he's probably going to end up my sort of dimensions, mate. Time Prophet saying, will the curry house be speaking German like Auf Wiedersehen, Pet? I'm wearing the t-shirt, mate. Yes, indeed. That is a classic episode. That it would no way would that get approved and broadcast these days. It's for those of you who don't know, any international viewers, Auf Wiedersehen, Pet was a British TV sitcom about migrant British workers in Germany, and yeah, and it was on in the 1980s, and it's, if you dig around on YouTube, find some clips, that it's genuinely funny. David Evans, yes, nice one, mate. Let's have a look, see what else we got. The car drives like a toilet, indeed. Claude Ball's the lion tamer. Chip Young. Now, I'm always interested in this kind of thing. I have an idea for a solo analysis. Summer Lightning by Camel. Let me write that down, because I've been looking for a Camel tune to do. But the thing is, Andy, I can't find a pen. Why can you never find a pen when you need one? I'll type it into my phone and email it to myself. Yeah, I've been looking for ideas for Camel solos, actually. But the problem is that Andy Latimer, fantastic guitarist though he is, a lot of Camel songs are There we go. Just sending that to myself. There it is. A lot of Camel songs are, structured pieces without really kind of improvised solos. And when you start doing something that is an actual melody rather than a solo, it does lead you into kind of slightly greyer copyright areas. Let's just say that much. What else we got? Yes, Penless. What else we got? Neil Morrissey's best work. Was Neil Morrissey in Auf? Are we still talking about Auf Wiedersehen, Pet? There, I'm not sure. But I didn't, was Neil Morrissey in that? Sure, I can't remember. If I'm honest. Brad Matthews is saying, I'd love to come, but I won't know for sure until late June. Hope that's okay. Yeah, late June is still well enough in advance, to kind of get the curry table, the curry house table booked. So, yeah, it's we did this once before back in 2021, and it was a cracking evening, and I'm hoping that this one will, be will at least equal that, or perhaps even surpass it. Let's put you up on screen there, Jeff. Is anyone familiar with the guitarist Nick Barrett? Absolutely stunning solos. I've got to tell you, I'm not. But then again, knowing you, Jeff, then it's probably going to be some, well, relatively obscure prog guy, isn't he? But what band does he play with? Let's have a look. I see a bit humpy, says Steve Cassidy guitar. Yes, that's a Camel reference. Chip Young is saying Summer Lightning was a single solo towards the end. How about a Walter Trout solo? Now, there is a fantastic idea. There is an absolute belter of an idea. Does anybody else remember that competition that Guitarist magazine did back in about 2008, I think, or maybe 2009, where you could add a solo to add all the lead guitar to a Walter Trout song, and the prize was a Vigia guitar. Is that how you pronounce them? Because Walter, I think, had like some kind of endorsement deal with Vigia at the time. Excuse me, I just need to clean me glasses. This will be a bit of a first. You've not seen me on the channel without these on yet, have you? God, look at that! Don't I look different? When I'm looking at my face now on the screen, I look all kind of pink and fuzzy. There's just a kind of a pink fuzzy kind of bald thing in front of me. Oh, and there I am, back again. Yeah, it's I entered that competition. I did a thing on that. Didn't get anywhere actually, but it was. I might. Oh, I see. We've got Craig Stamen in Pendragon. There we go. And Ravensmead is asking which curry house is it? It's going to be Bengal Spice, and. Budget Guitar Show. Gary Holton is a hero of mine. Yes, he played Wayne in Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, didn't he? Fantastic. Edwin Toonan is asking, what's happening with the Colin Guitaristas collaboration? Sounds like a wonderful couple. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Colin's, and we did have a bit of a chat about doing something, but for various reasons, it never came to fruition. If he's, I think I've let it be known that I'm still up for it, and if he wants to make it happen, then we can certainly have a bit of a chat and a natter. He's just his channel. I mean, his Friday videos, they're just they're a highlight of my weekend. I don't mind saying. Just seeing what he's kind of taking to bits and kind of putting under the microscope this week. I did have a look at some of his listings from the guitars he's been selling today. Because in that video where he was selling his effed up guitars, and I was tempted, but there's a couple of guitars in here that you haven't seen yet, because the videos are upcoming, so I can't show you them. Spoiler alert and all of that. But once I've kind of got rid of a couple of the guitars that are in here, just kind of passing through, as it were, livestock rather than family pets, then I am looking at possibly getting something new, something a little bit different. But we'll talk about that when the time is right. But yeah, I would like to. I'd like to have some sort of collab with Colin. He's a great lad, and I enjoy his videos immensely. He just comes across as just such a nice bloke, doesn't he? What did you think of Tim Healy in Benidorm? Yeah, I'd sort of stopped watching it really by the time his character cropped up in Benidorm. Because it was a show that where there was once the initial joke had kind of worn off of let's kind of let's satirize British holidaymakers in Spain, and it was the first couple of seasons were funny, but I kind of started thinking they were kind of retreading old ground again a little bit, so I kind of I didn't really watch much of it. I know that he was the kind of the guy who used to dress up in women's clothes in that, but I'd kind of stopped watching it by then, to be honest with you. Let's have a look. Rent to Kill is saying, cheers everyone, raising a toast. Rest in peace, Tina. Yes, indeed. Let's do it again. Tina, thank you for the music. And have I got I'm just seeing there's another super chat kind of cropped up. Oh, Colm Cross, thank you, mate. Thank you. I use StreamYard, as you can probably tell by the little logo in the corner of the screen there, to do these live streams. And recently they've changed the layout that I see of the chat, where once upon a time the super chats used to come up big and bold in the main chat, but now they come up in a separate section, so I have to kind of notice that they're there, basically. Ian Clark, thank you. I forgot to do that. I know. How could I forget to do that? What's coming up on the channel this week? I normally get that out the way early on, don't I? Right. Well, I've got a list here. I've even written it down. Sunday's video is testing something that people often say. How often have you heard, often from people like me, because I've said it plenty of times myself, that a Les Paul sounds a lot like a Telecaster? Well, on Sunday, we're putting it to the test. I have a Les Paul and I have a Telecaster, and I play a piece of music that features both kind of playing roughly the same sort of stuff. You know the kind of deal with these kind of demo pieces that I do. And we'll find out exactly how close a Les Paul and a Telecaster sound, because it's one of those things, isn't it? There are certain kind of Led Zeppelin tracks where there's kind of furious debate about did Jimmy Page play that on a Telecaster or a Les Paul, and well, we'll find out on Sunday how close they sound. Then on Monday, a guitarist that we lost sadly reasonably recently. It was recent when I did the video, but I do videos kind of about 6-7 weeks in advance, so a guitarist we lost, the wonderful Ian Benson, guitarist on Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush, obviously, guitarist with the band Pilot, if anybody remembers those. Or was it Pilot? Yeah, it was Pilot, wasn't it? yes, magic and all that kind of stuff. But his main day job was as guitarist with the Alan Parsons Project. So we're taking a look at one of his classic solos on Monday. Then continuing the theme of my favourite guitar moments from a particular decade, Tuesday we're looking at my top 5 90s guitar moments. And then on Wednesday, I will admit that this is a bit of a revisit, but Wednesdays are all about viewers' questions. And I've done plenty of videos now, and I think this will probably be the last one I do for a while at least, on how pentatonic scales worked. But there was a chap who emailed me who was getting into a bit of a kerfuffle, as they used to say on Little Britain, about the difference between a major and a minor pentatonic and what the relationship is between the two of them, etc. and etc. One of those kind of mental blocks that we can all get from time to time. And so Wednesday's video is answering that, the whole business of major and minor pentatonics. And then on Thursday, it's basically a little bit of a look at my pedal board. It's sort of evolving, It's actually evolved a little bit since I did the video that we want to see on Thursday. So perhaps another video on it at some point will get us there. As I said, I've never really been massively into pedals, but doing the sort of YouTube content and everything, I find that gear reviews tend to go down well. And if you want a cheap piece of gear to review that you can usually kind of make some use of, then a pedal usually fits the bill. So, I've got a nice little pedal board down here that's absolutely crammed with things at the moment. And that's what we're going to be looking at on Thursday. Just basically, these are the pedals I've got. This is why I use them. This is what they sound like, etc., etc. So... any advice for the perpetual beginner who never seems to get better despite years of playing? You basically, I always put it like this, without looking at the specifics of what your difficulties are. The thing that I've noticed is that people will, when they're a complete beginner, when you're literally learning your first chord, it takes an immense amount of effort and determination to get that first A chord to change to a D chord. Okay. And then the next chord change gets a little bit easier. And then the next one a little bit easier. And eventually you build up kind of a repertoire of chords that and you can strum them and you can play some songs and you can sound good. And, you start building up a comfort zone. Some, kind of a happy place where you can pick up the guitar and make some enjoyable sounds. So if you feel that you're stuck in a rut, and if you feel that, you're never getting anywhere with it, then just think back, if you can, to that first guitar chord that you ever learned and how much of a struggle that was, and put the same amount of effort into learning one new thing. Okay, it might be a picking technique. It might be a legato technique. It might be a tapping technique. It might be, anything. Okay, just put that same amount of effort that you put in when you first learned how to change from an A chord to a D chord, and just step outside of your comfort zone. Accept that it's going to be difficult. Accept that you're going to struggle. Accept that for every 10 attempts that you make at something, you're probably going to fail at least 7 or 8 times. And then the 1 or 2 times that you actually do manage it, celebrate that as a victory. Allow yourself to fail, basically. Allow you, if you get yourself into the mindset where you are kind of getting frustrated because 7 or 8 times out of every 10 you can't do it, then you get frustrated, you get tense, and then it's like, you kind of tension and frustration are, you tense up and it makes it difficult to play. But if you just kind of accept, I'm gonna see if I can do this 1 or 2 times today, and if I can, I'm going to celebrate that as a victory. Then you will just start getting a little bit, gradually over months, your comfort zone will expand a little bit. It's like watching a plant grow. You don't notice it from one day to the next, but after a few weeks or maybe a couple of months, you notice that plant is a lot bigger than it was when I first started watering it. So that would be my advice anyway. Steve Cassidy, you're off, mate. Have a great gig, mate. Ravensmead is saying, there was a time when I thought I could never play bar chords, but with a bit of hard work, it happened. Indeed. And I will say that, because I teach beginners all the time, and so I'm constantly reminded of things that otherwise I would forget about how difficult it is when you're first learning. And bar chords is very definitely the steepest part of the learning curve. I was in a bit of a live kind of duo thing, 10, 12 years ago. And the singer and rhythm guitarist, because I was playing lead guitar and the singer was singing and playing rhythm guitar. They'd never learned to play bar chords. And, we're talking about someone in their early 40s who'd been playing since they were a kid and, just couldn't play bar chords because it had just suddenly learned the first few kind of chords and everything went pretty well. And then suddenly slam into that brick wall of playing bar chords where it suddenly got difficult and never pursued it beyond that, which was, that is when I'm teaching students and I'm about to show them their first bar chord, it's always like, okay, walk past any pawn shop window, any kind of cash converters or, kind of second-hand shop or whatever. Look in the window, you'll always see a load of guitars. They're all there because of bar chords. I said it's often the steepest part of the learning curve. If you can get past that, if you can get past this stage, then you'll never ever struggle with anything as much. So you just got to grind through it. David Evans is saying, the first song I learned to play on the guitar was Mull of Kintyre by Paul McCartney. The first song I ever learned to play on the guitar, what was the first proper song I ever learned? Because like when I first started learning, it was all kind of Skip to My Lou and, Michael row the boat ashore, Hallelujah, and, Go Tell It on the Mountain, and all that kind of stuff, which if you're a fan of that kind of music, then fair enough, but I wasn't. But I think the first proper song I learned to play using the A, D, and E chords was Me and Bobby McGee. The old, I knew it as a Bill Haley song because in the latter part of his career, he did a recording of it. I didn't know it was a Janis Joplin or a Chris Christopherson song, but I knew the Bill Haley version. And you could play that on A, D, and E, so I did. And just that thrill of being able to lift the needle over onto the record and wait for the music to start and join in. That's a thrill that's never ever left me, to be honest with you. Gordo Canuck is saying, for me, it was Jamaica Farewell by Harry Belafonte. Yeah, I never learned that one. Let's have a look. Jimmy James, my first song was Wind Up by Tull. Oh, yes, indeed. Blondie. We haven't seen Blondie this week, have we? Let's get her out. Here we go. Oh, God, look at that top. Isn't that just gorgeous? As I've often said, the one thing that really kind of, frustrates me is that top never comes across as good as that in videos. Blondie is fixed, by the way. I finally got to the bottom of the wiring issue, I think, although that is famous last words. But yes, what a gorgeous guitar this is. I've just done. Let me just put that on there. I've just done a couple of Santana solos. One of which will be appearing on the channel, and one of which is for the one of the Patreon lessons that I do. And on one of them, I use the PRS, because you're doing a Santana tune, you've got to use a PRS, haven't you? But on the other one, I use Blondie, and dear me, she did a cracking job of nailing that Santana tone, and part of that is down to the pedal board, and that's coming up, as I say, on the there is a particular pedal that if you want to emulate the Santana sound, that you just need to get. And the good news is there's a Behringer version of it, and so it's going to be cheap, and just this one pedal into any kind of high gain sounding amp will get you that Santana tone on pretty much any humbucker guitar. And if you're curious what the pedal is, well, you're just going to have to wait for the video to come out. Craig's saying that first song I wanted to learn was Buzzing When I Could Play It Was All Right Now by Free. Indeed, yeah, that's one of those apprentice pieces, isn't it? I remember the first song I ever played on power chords was Doctor Doctor by UFO, the live version from Strangers in the Night, which, funnily enough, I didn't have the Strangers in the Night album. I discovered UFO via this song, and it was on one of these, nowadays it would be a Now That's What I Call Music album, but back then it was on some K-Tel or Ronco, or, kind of one of those Music for Pleasure. Do you remember that record label, Music for Pleasure? One of those kind of compilations that you could buy in Woolworths for about, threepence or whatever it was. And, thinking, just kind of stumbled across it, really, stumbled across kind of moving one finger along a string and kind of figuring it out, and then playing it on one string for a while, and then somebody showed me how to play a power chord shape, and dear me, that was it. Suddenly I could play like a proper kind of rock tune, because I was just getting into all that new wave of British heavy metal at the time in the late 70s. Late 70s, early 80s, round about then, when I was weaning myself onto rock music from I started with kind of 50s rock and roll, then went via blues into rock music, and I was starting to get into bands like Judas Priest and Rainbow and UFO, funnily enough. So that was probably the first power chord song I ever learned. Doctor Doctor by the Thompson Twins. A very different song, James. A very, very different song. Yes, indeed. Oh, dear me, the Beatles Complete Songbook. Yes, we all had a copy of that, didn't we? About the size of a phone directory, and every single song in it pretty much was wrong. There wasn't a chord in any of those songs that the Beatles actually played. I remember the version of Day Tripper in that is in the key of C. For some reason, it's like even a half-blind sloth can tell that it's in the key of E. But yes, I remember that. I remember that songbook very well indeed. Jay Ao Young is saying first power chord song was Smoke on the Water. Yeah, well, again, that's another one, another apprentice piece, isn't it? What else? The chat's moving really fast at the moment. Excuse me if I miss your comment. Stuart Young, that's an interesting comment. As I get older, I've developed an appreciation for bluegrass. I'm a fan of the Brothers Comatose. They do some great covers. Don't know them, but if you know anything about bluegrass, then you're going to know about Hayseed Dixie, aren't you? and that does appeal to me. That kind of take they do on taking classic rock songs and doing them as kind of bluegrass jug band songs, Another band who were like that, and I probably mentioned them before, I think they're called Staying Alive, and they're an Australian Bee Gees heavy metal tribute band. They do all of those classic Bee Gees songs like Staying Alive and Night Fever and, How Deep Is Your Love, but they do them as kind of, kind of metal songs, and it just works. Was the UFO track from Axe Attack? No, I think Dr. Doctor was on Phenomenon. I might be wrong, but that's my kind of memory of it. Let's have a look. Smoke on the Water is played in fourths. Indeed it is, but they are still power chords. A fourth is an inversion of a fifth, and a fifth is a power chord. So there you go. How about some analysis of your own solos? I know we get the tab in Patreon, but I'd like to hear your take. Could make it a separate video if too long. Okay. Back in the very early days of this channel, I did do a solo analysis of a solo from one of my albums, from a tune called Don't Tell Him, Pike. And again, classic British sitcom reference there. So yeah, I used to do this actually when I used to do like the kind of jams when I was demonstrating a guitar or anything. I used to try and do kind of a bit of a lesson part of the jam on the jam, but it just got so that the videos were creeping up to like 20, 25, getting on towards 30 minutes long, and it's like that's getting a bit much for a single video. I do like to try and keep them under 20 minutes, ideally under 15, so that you get that especially that short little blast of hopefully pleasant content. And nowadays, obviously, I'm doing before the whole kind of lockdown thing and everything, I was doing 2 videos a week, and now I'm doing 5 videos and a live stream every week. So I've got to think about kind of feeding the YouTube beast, as it were. But yeah, I'm up for that. I could do some sort of lesson content based on that. It's always, there is a little bit of me that kind of shies away from that though, because it's like, I don't mind talking about an iconic Clapton solo or David Gilmour, Gary Moore or whatever, that kind of thing. But it's, it's like there's a part of me that's uncomfortable about saying, okay, let's talk about me today, which, I suppose, if you're in the business of self-promotion and putting YouTube videos up and stuff like that, that's not particularly a healthy attitude to have. But it is that little kind of voice in me that's saying, yeah, people want to hear about real guitarists, not you. Dr. Gomez would say, could you do an analysis of Schenker's playing style, particularly his use of vibrato? Yeah, I could do, I suppose. He's not a player that I've ever listened to in that. I've listened to loads of his stuff over the years, obviously. UFO and MSG and, Into the Arena. Now there's a song. There's a fantastic bit of music there. I actually did a cover of that many, many years ago. And now I've got the DistroKid thing going on. I could actually release that as a cover, couldn't I? Anyway, we'll see. But what I'm saying is I've never really listened to his playing with that sort of analytical ear. But it would be a good thing to do, I suspect. So there we go. DJW saying, any appreciators of Napalm Death out there? That's a little bit kind of full on for me, I must admit. It's what that whole this is the thing with metal, okay? Just on a broader sense. You know that scene in The Life of Brian where Brian goes up to John Cleese and says, "Are you the Judean People's Front?" Off, we're the People's Front of Judea, mate. There's that scene there where, and metal music is a little bit like that. And I've found that out to me cost a couple of times when I've mentioned, kind of this type of metal versus that type of metal on the live stream. And it's, that kind of response, if you misname it. But where I'm going with this is that back in the 80s when, we all, I think in the UK, used to listen to Tommy Vance on a Friday night, the Friday Rock Show. And he started playing this newfangled thrash stuff. I couldn't get my head around it at all. And rock music then seemed to either be silly poodle perm, spandex clad, makeup wearing, Max Factor kind of L'Oreal kind of guys with, awful kind of single pickup Floyd Rose leopard skin guitars, or it seemed to be the kind of shoutier thrash stuff. And I'm thinking, can't somebody play any kind of Bad Company anymore? What happened to proper rock music? Can we not hear some Thin Lizzy? And because rock seemed to be going in those two directions, I kind of went a bit more down a blues and jazz rabbit hole then. So the whole kind of Napalm Death kind of thing, and what was another band from that era, Cradle of Filth. It just all kind of passed me by. Maybe I should go back and revisit it. Maybe I should. I don't know. We shall have to see how much time I've got in my hands. Time Prophet, what you saying, mate? Napalm Death once got sued because they didn't have any lyrics for all their songs. They basically just grunted through every song. I'm not sure where there's a lawsuit in that. But, there you go. DJW is saying, On Every Street by Dire Straits, bloody tricky. I can attest to that. I've thought about doing a solo analysis of that outro part of that many a time, but it's always defeated me. I don't mind saying, there are some things that, even a guitar teacher will tell you that, even an honest guitar teacher will tell you that, yeah, I'm sorry, but I can't play that. I can figure it out for you. I can tell you what notes to play in what order, but ask me to demonstrate it. Well, yeah, okay, let's talk about something else. Let's see what else we've got going on in the chat before we wind things to a close. Cradle of Filth is still going. Fair enough. Nice to know, I suppose, if you're a fan of theirs. Craig, how did I know you'd be a fan of Napalm Death? Yes. Craig is a mate of mine, and I've known him getting on for 30 years. He was a student of mine back in the mid-90s. And, when he was a wee whippersnapper. And you always had a predilection for the heavier stuff, didn't you, mate? So, takes all sorts, I suppose. How about breaking down Warriors of Genghis Khan by Bad News? The only thing I know about Bad News, it was Adrian Edmondson's kind of comedy band, wasn't it? And they did that sort of really awful, purposefully awful version of Bohemian Rhapsody. And they did an appearance, I think it was at Monsters of Rock, where they did a little bit of a set there back in the 80s sometime. Brian May turned up and wanted to kind of come into their tent and have a beer with them. They wouldn't let him in, which was, kind of a bit mean of them, I suppose. But it was, I suppose, it was the 80s, wasn't it? Let's have a look. Did you ever see Randy Rhoads? Said Ravensmead. I didn't, I'm afraid. And now there is a guitarist who I'm looking right now at a guitar that one of the ones I mentioned earlier that's only kind of livestock, it's only moving through, but it does have a Randy Rhoads vibe about it. So you can all kind of speculate about what kind of guitar that is. While it's here, I'm thinking maybe I should put it to good use and do a Randy Rhoads solo analysis. Yeah, we shall see. Anyway, chaps, 59 minutes and 52, 53, 55 seconds in at the moment, and I've got a curry downstairs waiting for me. So I'm going to wrap things up there. Thank you once again, each and every one of you, for turning up and watching a fat, bald northern lad talk absolute nonsense for an hour. Never know what I'm going to say, but you always kind of supply me with plenty of topics to keep blethering on about in the chat. Excuse me, wind. It's been an absolute blast, as always, and I'll keep on doing it till you're sick of me. But for now, time, gentlemen, please.